Welcome to Reawakening Love and Power with Carol Ann, and to this conversation with Sali McIntyre on the practice of yoni or vaginal steaming. This conversation might be particularly helpful to you if you have had challenges with your reproductive health, a challenging relationship with your vagina or your womb, if you're pregnant or postpartum, or are generally seeking holistic and simple ways to tend to your health and well-being at home. Sali is a certified Arvigo practitioner and educator and co-founder of the Heart and Soul of Wellness Centre in Murwillumbah, New South Wales, Australia. She has been a yoga teacher, hypnobirthing practitioner, and a midwife, and she continues to be a mother, grandmother, Arvigo therapist, prenatal yoga teacher, birth educator, and advocate for women with an enduring passion for birth on every level. She believes passionately that we are on the brink of and in the middle of the birth revolution that will see women taking back birth and their reproductive health into their hands, much like the women's consciousness raising movement of the 70s that occurred whilst she was in her teens. She's a grandmother, mother, partner, sister, friend, auntie, and wise woman, a perpetual student of life, the mysteries of the human body and metaphysical anatomy. She is endlessly fascinated about this world we see and the worlds that are unseen. She loves Mother Earth, crystals, angels, trees, flowers, dragons, and fairies. Having birthed 4 babies at home in the 80s, she's passionate about educating and preparing women for labor, birth, and for becoming new mamas. She offers free postpartum yoni steaming for women in the postnatal Mums and Bubs group in Murwillumbah. She lives with her partner Jerry and their staffy Mac in the Nobbies Creek Valley, where they manage a retreat space for yoga and wellness retreats. She feels privileged to be caretaker of this beautiful land and above all loves to grow herbs and create new gardens. She's awed and amazed by the practical wisdom and healing that ancient techniques offer, and is equally inspired by the new modalities of healing and energy medicine that are evolving. It is a pleasure to share this conversation I had with Sali. You might hear some of the sounds of the neighborhood or our microphones as you listen. Just imagine us recording it in the back room of Heart and Soul of Wellness in Murwillumbah, sitting on wicker chairs, drinking a pot of nettle and raspberry leaf tea that Sali made us, and looking out the window to the view of Wollumben or Mount Warning. So Sali, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I really appreciate how much wisdom you have around the reproductive system and the pelvic bowl and birthing and bringing this sense of empowerment and ownership back to our bodies and our reproductive health and wellness, and the kind of holistic view that you have of that. It's a joy to be here with you.
Thank you.
So I'd love to start by talking about yoni steaming or vaginal steaming. I'm imagining some people may have heard of it, some people may have no idea what it is. So perhaps starting just with what is it and what is it good for?
Sure. And I often preface a conversation about yoni steaming by saying that when I hadn't heard about it either, and I was astonished that I didn't know about it, considering that I had been a midwife and a yoga teacher and been involved in women's health in different capacities. It's like, how could I not have heard of this? Not in any novel, not in any textbook, nada. And there are obviously many women who haven't heard of it either. But when you start doing the research and when you start looking into other cultures, it is in just about every single country, continent, culture in the world. Yeah. And often best known for healing and recovery after birth. If there's knowledge and information about it, it is to do with the postpartum period. But women, I learned about it from Rosita Arvigo, and she learnt about it from the midwives and her healers and mentors in Central America. And for them, it was a common occurrence in women's health in their life. If something was wrong, they would be, and Rosita, she talks about this. If something's wrong with them, they'd say, have you done your steam? Just like we'd say, have you had your peppermint tea, or have you been
to the doctor?
Yeah. But as I kind of pondered and wondered, and why haven't we heard about this? Why has this knowledge so completely been submerged? I've come to the understanding that it's women's wisdom, it's grassroots wisdom that has been suppressed. It's been hidden from view. And to my knowledge, I don't know if this is documented. Did it go underground when the Spanish, invaded South America? When books were burnt, like my understanding is that in previous generations, previous culture, knowledge is handed down verbally. There isn't the written word, but if it was written, was that knowledge burnt? With the book burnings, and the more I came to understand it, it is just one more aspect of women's wisdom that has been suppressed by the patriarchy as a way of keeping women down and oblivious to the power they have, but also to the knowledge of the herbs and the techniques that they can use to look after their bodies. And that would have been handed down from grandmother to mother, to the next generation. And I haven't had this experience myself, but I've heard many conversations about women discovering that their grandmother did it, or that their mother did it when she was a young woman. And again, completely not part of general everyday conversation in family life, but when somebody discovers yoni steaming, oh yeah, we used to do that. So I find that endlessly fascinating.
Just hearing you describe that, I feel this kind of fire burning in my belly, and it's kind of anger that it was suppressed and punished and lost, but also the fire of passion to bring it back.
Yes.
And also a sense of grief that this isn't something that has been retained through my own lineage and my own tradition. There's so much that's been lost, but it also brings that grief, I think, motivates me to bring back this kind of connection and wisdom.
Beautiful.
So it's kind of, practically speaking, the practice of sitting over a steaming pot of herbs and water. Yeah,
pretty much.
It's simple, right?
Simple as that. And these days, because we live in a capitalist system, you can buy yoni stools made out of ash, walnut, the deluxe models, vinyl covered, with backs. There's just a plethora of yoni steam apparatus now. But in the old days, they would have dug holes in the ground and placed hot rocks in that hole, maybe poured boiling water over to get the steam, and used herbs that they would have picked, obviously to use the benefits of the herbal properties for the steam. And again, now we live in a capitalist society, so if there's a market, you can buy anything. So you can buy your herbs online, you can buy your yoni stool, you can all the goods. But really, if you've got herbs in your garden, even if you don't have herbs in your garden, you can go to the health food shop and buy organic herbs in bulk. If you didn't have that, again, Rosita used to talk about, if you've got herbs in your garden, that's great. If you don't, use the oregano in your herbal.
You definitely have some in your kitchen, in your spice cabinet.
And if you don't have that, use steam.
Just water.
Just water, just steam, or salt, or lemon peel. There's you don't have to make it complicated. And we tend to make everything complicated. We do. But basically, so you have your pots. And again, you can buy fancy pots, I would certainly recommend using either stainless steel or ceramic. And to keep it simple, like I think if a woman is requiring yoni steaming for a more chronic condition, then you can actually keep the heat of those boiling herbs going for longer by using like a hot plate underneath.
Yeah.
But if you're doing it for general maintenance or postpartum or for a uterine cleanse, you just need the steam that lasts for 10, 15 minutes just because you've boiled up your water and your herbs is generally enough.
Yeah.
So, and if you've got a yoni stool, great. But I know women squat over their herbs or kneel on the ground and leaning forward.
Yeah.
And obviously you've got to be really careful about not getting burnt.
Yeah.
I don't do that, but women they cut holes in chairs.
Yeah.
They use garden chairs. They use commodes.
Yeah.
Or
put the pot, like clean out your toilet and then put the pot in the toilet, sit on the toilet.
I can never figure out how that works, but I know women do that.
I never had a pot that fit right.
Yeah.
They all had handles or they were too tall.
And to me that means that your vulva is very close to the source of steam. That always really goes, whoa, how does that work?
Yeah. Well, what I have at home, I don't know that this would be comfortable enough if I was postpartum and more tender, but I have like one of those, it's a kind of a plastic U-shaped stool that's intended to go around the toilet to prop up your feet so you're in more of a squatting position when you're on the toilet. But because it's got that U shape, I lay a towel over it, and I have my pot, the pot I use with it is smaller. It might be like the width of my hand or something, like the long width from...
Yeah.
And I tuck that in the crook of the U, and then I just kind of perch on the edge of the stool. But I wait, I test the temperature and I wait until it's comfortable enough to sit on top. I've heard people criticize steaming by saying, oh, it's dangerous, you could get burnt. And I think we're not infants. We can be trusted with kitchen knives. And if you can be trusted to cook a hot dinner, I think you can be trusted
or tend a wood fire.
I think you can be trusted to not, if it's too hot, get up.
But I think that's worth looking at, because I think if we don't trust our instincts and we've got a strong mental will that goes, oh, this is too hot, but it's good for me, so I'm just gonna I'm just gonna stay here and it's gonna cool down. You actually could hurt yourself as opposed to going, no, this is too hot, get up. So it's almost like you need to tell women that, and I do tell women that it needs to be soothing from the get-go. You need to get up, wait a few minutes, hop down, try again. Don't sit there like in a hot bath knowing it's going to cool down. Your vulva, the tissues are very sensitive and can get burnt. And look, women have injured themselves as well, so it's not bad to... Obviously, it's a caution.
That makes sense. And it's symptomatic of that. It's part of that empowerment process to go, okay, I'm going to listen to my body first and foremost and what my body is telling me. Because we are used to doing, who's the authority and what does the authority say I should do? And I will do that no matter what it feels
if I have
like.
to burn myself in the process.
They, even though, well, maybe it's supposed to burn me, maybe it's supposed to hurt me because they said that's what I should do. Learning to really listen to the signals that your body is giving you and trust that over what anyone else says. I agree. And also the other extreme is also true, because if it's not hot enough and it's just like, then you're also not going to get the benefit of it, and you're unlikely to go back and want to try it again. But you also might not say, oh it was all right. So if it's not hot enough, it's not certainly not going to hurt you, but you won't get that same
amazing heat and warmth and energy which rises. To me, if the heat is the right temperature, it goes from yoni up to the heart. It's like a very much of a rising, warming heat.
Yeah.
You know, and it always should feel nurturing and nourishing, and that's what most women say.
Yeah.
You know, there's not too many women. Some women do go, yeah, it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But most women say, oh, that was so nurturing. And particularly postpartum mamas.
Yeah. So tell us what kinds of things it's particularly good for, what kinds of things it's supportive with.
So as like the way yoni steaming is now, the information about yoni steaming which is coming to light or has come to light now, and this is very much based on what Kelly Garza has brought to the world through her website Steamy Chick. She and maybe she's the first. I don't know of anyone else who has done this, but she has brought the knowledge of Chinese medicine into the practice of yoni steaming, and she has brought that understanding of prescribing herbs for a woman according to her menstrual cycle. And so if a woman has got a short menstrual cycle, for example, then there is a protocol to bring the cycle back into balance. Same if there's a long menstrual cycle, or if there's a missing period altogether, or if a woman has got any one of the many reproductive disorders, if you like, that we have, endometriosis, fibroids, cysts, infections, most of what women suffer from can be helped with steaming. I never say anything is going to cure anything. Yeah. I never would say that, whether that's massage, steaming, but the very fact that it brings warmth, circulation to the tissues, to the pelvic area, has got to increase circulation. It has to increase the flow of lymph, the flow of chi and energy. So it's going to help. It's going to help a woman feel better. And it's going to help her feel more in touch with her body. Yeah. Like you say, we're often so not in touch with our body, and we're so busy being told what to do and what's good for us that and that can be an absolute wake-up call for someone to go, whoa, this is what my body's been trying to tell me. Because often we all know that that saying, the issues are in the tissues, that the illness has its origins in emotional distress or trauma or going a long way back, and if they're not dealt with, then the illness or the unease moves from more of an etheric energy level closer and closer and closer. No, still haven't dealt with it, until it lands in your body. Yeah. And I think, I don't know where I was going with that, but steaming can really help with that kind of unraveling and that, because and there's a lot written about this now, that if you have reproductive ailments, it's your womb is calling for attention. You're not listening. You're not listening to me. Okay, I'm going to make you pay attention. And the symptoms might be painful menstrual cramps. They might be a missing period. They might be cysts, fibroids, all of the many things. And that's not to make anyone feel bad about any symptoms their body is manifesting, because your body is so amazing. It's so wise. And my understanding more and more is that your body is your subconscious. Yeah. It's like I only just got that fairly recently. It's just like, wow. Yeah. So all of that stuff we've got buried in our subconscious is buried in our body. Yeah. And of course it's going to come bubbling up because that's what happens with the subconscious. Yeah. It's going to come up in body ailments. And that's, again, that's not bad. In fact, that's awesome. And we're so lucky that we're just so fortunate. But that requires a certain attitude or mind flip, because again, we're taught to feel so bad about our bodies. And that's going back generations and generations to religion, to fearing sex, fearing life, fearing the life force, so that we don't have that trust in our bodies, And it's the same as the way we treat the earth.
Yeah.
We have abused the earth just like women have abused their bodies, because they don't feel good about themselves. Because we just all need so much kindness now. This is kind of still going around from that. If your body is producing symptoms, it's not because you're bad.
You've done nothing wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because as if the symptoms themselves aren't bad enough without having someone go, you manifested this,
Yeah, I don't really subscribe to that. Not that kind of way of blaming. I think your body has its reasons why it responds in the best ways it knows how to protect you.
Yes.
That often turns into tension and those kind of responses of fight, flight, or freeze, or collapse, or different kind of knots and constrictions. But your body does. I believe that our bodies innately know wholeness, and when we give them the space and the time and the safety and that love and compassion and kindness and the support that they need, they know how to move back towards that wholeness. And I think that's what the steam helps with. It's not like the steam. It's not like a douche that it's like going in and washing something. It's like it gives your body boost and support so that your body's own natural healing mechanisms can come into play and do their job.
Yes.
Is that your understanding?
Absolutely. Yeah. And that yoni steaming might not be the first step in a woman's healing journey, but it might arise from something else that she has undertaken. It might be yoga, or it might be walking on the beach, or it might be changing her diet. Because as that body gets the feeling of, this is feeling good, I'm going to try this now, and this, I'm going to do this, and diet changes, and more exercise, whatever it is for anyone's particular journey.
And in your book, you talk about how steaming, it works on all of these different levels. It's not just the kind of, yes, it increases circulation and lymph and those kinds of things on the physical layer, but it also provides that opportunity to connect with emotions that might be associated with that pelvic area of your body, to connect with the energy there, to build a more kind of see what your relationship is like with that part of your body, and cultivate a more supportive relationship with it. Yes.
Because I think our womb is very, and I don't know if this is the nature of the womb itself or the nature of the feminine aspect. The womb holds it all, and everything that happens to us from the time we're little girls, probably from the time we're born. I don't know if that would work. Yep. Anyway, the womb holds all that emotion. The pelvic bowl holds all that emotion, and holds all the disappointment, the rejection, abandonment, grief, trauma, as well as all as joy and happiness and fun experiences. But the womb acts as like this container. And again, if those fears have been suppressed, and the nervous system has gone into that fight or flight, or the tissues, it stays in the tissues. And my understanding is that that steaming can actually be used to help with emotional trauma, and women who have experienced abuse, because, and you might know more about this, I've read an article that the vagus nerve goes all the way down into the cervix.
Yeah.
I mean, how cool is that? So that when the steam touches the cervix and starts to move into that tissue, the tissue can actually release that frozen memory or that frozen experience.
Like melting.
Yeah. I mean, that is extraordinary.
Yeah.
And maybe as a I don't know, as human evolution is, maybe we weren't ready for that a couple of generations ago, or I don't know, maybe because there's a lot of awareness now of trauma being held in the body, and many, many different ways to help resolve that.
I also find that it's a beautiful way to feel and connect with that part of your body without necessarily exploring it with touch, because sometimes I mean, I'm a big fan of touching your own vulva and vagina and womb, and not, you can't like literally get inside to touch your womb, the organ, but like touching that space of your belly. But sometimes that feels like too awkward or there's too many layers of guilt or shame or feeling kind of built up to feel comfortable touching your body in that way. And so you can let the steam touch it and feel the warmth. And when you sit over the steam, you have that intention that I'm here to steam my vagina, my womb, my pelvic cauldron. So you hold that intention. The sensation is there. There's warmth there. So it kind of gently brings your awareness there in a more gentle way. That's my experience of it anyway. And I love things that are warm, especially right now. We've just passed the winter solstice. And that warmth just feels so good to me, especially at this time of year. Different people's bodies run more hot or cold. I always have cold hands and cold feet. So that warmth feels really nourishing to me.
Yes, I think some women, they don't even want to steam in the summer because it's already so hot. Yeah.
What are some of the contraindications? Like when is steaming not a good idea?
So definitely not if you're pregnant. Definitely not if you're menstruating. And again, my understanding is if you do have a really short menstrual cycle, when you've got a cycle that's less than 25 days, then until you have evened out your cycle, and that's just one particular opinion, that you should wait until that, or if you did do a steam, it would be a short, gentle one, not very hot at all. If you've got an active infection, is not a good time to steam. And so if you've got any open sores, if you had a herpes outbreak, you wouldn't. But again, there's different opinions, but I think the main one is definitely not when you're pregnant, not when you're menstruating. When else would you not steam?
I think I read this in your book. That postpartum, if you have had stitches but the wound is not completely healed yet?
If you've had a cesarean birth, then it's not recommended to steam for 6 weeks, until that. So steaming for stitches, perineal stitches, has been found to be really helpful.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And there is a one study done that I know of called the forced trimester vaginal study. So, and that one of the control factors was stitches. And universally they found that the women who steamed with stitches, their stitches healed better, they were less irritating. The other factors were the swollenness after birth, bruising, tenderness, fundal height they measured. They measured waist circumference, fluid loss, all these different postpartum symptoms. The women who were steamed all had much quicker healing.
Mm-hmm.
The lochia dried up within the first week. The lochia, the discharge from the vagina and from the shedding of the womb, just like the cleaning out of the womb lining. And hemorrhoids was another one. And there may be a couple of others that I can't remember. But, yeah. So, but again, for a lot of women have really tough births.
Yeah.
They have a really hard physical birth. Sometimes they have experience of emotional coercion, or just having the experience of birth being taken away from them, so that they have come out of the experience not feeling empowered and feeling a bit damaged and hurt and bruised. And the steaming can really help bring a woman back. But a woman is so energetically open when she gives birth, and that needs to close. That birth field needs to come back in again. I think steaming is a really helpful thing to do, as well as the rest.
Yeah.
You know, that's becoming more and more obvious now, that women need to rest when they've had a baby. Their womb needs to rest.
Of course, it's a massive undertaking for the body.
Absolutely.
And the emotional side and energy.
But do we pay attention to that in the Western world? Not until recently.
Yeah.
It's like get back to work and get back into your skinny jeans and lose that baby weight and crazy.
Yeah. It just what this is all reminding me of is just the point that nothing's wrong with you if you've had a difficult birth or if things feel hard, because our culture and our society is not well in a lot of ways. It's not you. It's the system. It's the ocean that we're all swimming in.
Yeah. It's so true.
And it makes sense that if you have challenging experiences, it makes sense, because things are not necessarily set up for you to be really
the birth goddess, empowering in your own wisdom. And it's so true.
Yeah.
I always tell women that they are really courageous to be having births at this time of our evolution, in the hospital system or in the medical model of birth.
Do you think it's different than when you had your kids?
Well, I had home births.
Yeah.
I think it is. I think it is different.
In what way?
I think birth has become, and this has been happening for decades, probably a century. I'm not sure when it actually started, but when men came into the domain of the midwife. And the midwife was no longer given the status and the merit that she deserved, because all of a sudden doctors started to enter into obstetrics, and the women's model, the midwife's model of birth trusts birth. It trusts that women know how to grow a baby and birth a baby under their own steam and under their own intuitive way of doing it. Whereas the medical model, we know a lot about the anatomy of the body now, and having said that, there's a lot that we are still learning, but it's all become very regimented, very labour is divided into stages and stages of stages, and there's timelines and there's policies and procedures, and a woman, it's like a one size fits all.
It's missing the context.
Yes. So back to my birth, that was 40 years ago, but I had four home births, so I missed a lot of that, and I didn't have ultrasounds. I had antenatal care, but I didn't have ultrasounds or anything like that. So, but neither would my mother have. So it's not that long ago. I mean, it's not that long ago that women were able to birth without epidurals, or without the option of an epidural. It's only a few generations. And there are obviously countries where women don't expect to have that the option of an epidural. So they don't. They get on with it. Women's bodies are designed to get on with it and birth their babies.
We are speaking about a particularly Western context.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think gives you? I heard you say something about women. They're birthing under their own steam. And I thought, what do you think? Because so you had your home births at a time when I imagine that wasn't that common.
No.
And you're in this field of work that is kind of, it's not mainstream, you could say. And it kind of goes in a new direction than the direction that, a different direction for our society, a different approach. Where does your steam come from? Because it takes conviction and energy and determination. It's hard to go against the grain and to speak about these things openly. We were talking before we recorded about the witch wound, like that fear of claiming our own wisdom and power around this sort of stuff for fear of significant repercussions. So where does your steam come from?
Well, I think I've always had lots of steam, but also I'm getting older now, so I am now a grandmother. I now notice that women, other people look to me as an elder. And in fact, people have, I think you've called me an elder at different points. And I was like, whoa, is that me? Really? So it's, and I think also, like I've always gone against the grain, really, from as soon as I was a teenager and realised that there was another way to look at the world from how I was brought up. Yeah. That's where my leaning has gone, and of course, because that is most interesting to me and most exciting and, most intriguing. And as at this point of our evolution, if you want to call it like that, to me it's really obvious we are in this time of huge crisis and change and that we have the opportunity to be part of this emerging paradigm, which is what many of us all want, to be part of, and that has its own steam. So it's almost like it's feeding us and it's guiding us and it's leading us, and you and I have talked about this before. We want to control things. But really, are we being led? Because we've talked about putting your hand up as well. If you put your hand up to spirit or whatever your idea of a higher good is, and go, I want to help, I want to be of service, then it will. That's where the steam comes from as well. And so. Which is kind of, we talked about it being scary as well, because it's being in that feminine way of, I actually don't know what I'm going to do or what's going to happen next. But then also, I think this makes me sound really old, but with the wisdom of age, I can look back and I go, oh, that so clearly happened to lead to that point, to the next stepping stone, to the next stepping stone, all the way up to now. What happens next? And I spend a fair amount of time being anxious about, instead of just going, I've always been looked after, always been guided, always been honoured and protected, and but just that egoic, for want of a better word, sense of separation, it makes us feel that we're small. That we're separate, that we're in fear, that we don't know what we're doing, we know nothing, whatever. If everyone's inner conversation is slightly different, but it's always about being not enough, not good enough, not knowing enough, not having enough. And I kind of come to what you said before about how we're not supported because of the system.
Yeah.
And people aren't kind to each other. I mean, obviously many people are kind to each other, but I think we need a lot of kindness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of compassion, and there's some very divisive kind of, ideologies out there.
We need
right
to get
now.
better at holding differing opinions and opposing viewpoints without destroying and attacking each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's the ego.
Yeah.
And there's no winners in that game.
No.
And they're just opinions after all.
It's interesting. Hearing your response, I realized that even in the way I asked that question, it kind of has that old paradigm of like you as the individual rather than, where thinking of you, Sali, and where does your motivation come from as one person doing this thing. But in your answer, you reminded me that we're all a part of something bigger. It's something that we do in community as part of a bigger energy, and that actual that's a different paradigm as well of that we heal and we create healthier, more vibrant, life-affirming cultures in community, in connection, in kind of in concert or in cooperation with something much bigger than us.
Yes.
That's actually also one of the things that I love about what you do here. So we're recording this at your center, the Heart and Soul of Wellness in Murwillumbah. And there's a lot of emphasis on bringing groups of people together and sharing. Sometimes I find that the modalities are helpful. And like you said, yoni steaming has its place. It's not the one cure for everything. And being in connection with others, being in community, sharing our stories, being witnessed, being, seen and heard, and telling other, just hearing someone else's experience and going, oh yeah, I feel you, that sucks.
Yes.
Or I know what that's like. That connection is really healing too.
Yes.
In and of itself.
Yes. Yes, so true. And particularly for women going through stages of transition, like new mothers, coming together with other new mothers with babes in arms and going, oh my God, like you say, I'm not the only one who feels like this, or, because, and it's happening more and more in every single town, just about, that we have these circles, these gatherings of women, and whether you come together as a group who has someone talking about a particular topic, or just come together for a cup of tea and sharing, it's that circle of women. And like you say, that sharing, and that, that can be hugely transformative.
What do you see happening when you host those circles here?
Women feeling better about themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's, that because again, that relentless voice in your head, or in women's head, and obviously men have this voice as well, that is saying you're not doing it right. You haven't got it together. Yeah. So-and-so is doing it better than you. Yeah. Your baby wouldn't go to sleep last night. Your baby's not eating solids by 6 months. Whatever the conversation is, it's usually self-damning. Yeah. And I think if you can have a moment's break from that relentless head chatter, it makes you feel more in touch with who you really are, because it's not who you really are. It's not your essence. It's not your higher self. It's not your true being. But we think it is. And I think it is. I get tricked every single day, and until I do whatever I need to do to go, I'm not listening. When the huge tendency is to listen to those voices which say you're not good enough, you're not worthy, So, and I think women are, obviously we're really good at holding space. so that when you do get a group of women together, chat, you know, talk, you know, then it gives women a break. I'm just repeating myself now. In every way, not just from that head chatter, but from trying to be all, be everything to everybody, holding it all together, which is exhausting. It's so yang, it's so masculine orientated. It's so much a part of the patriarchy that you have to be out there being the breadwinner and being the mother and being the wife, and you know, it's exhausting. And no wonder women have got reproductive ailments and other ailments, and women are exhausted.
Yeah, that goes back to what we were saying about how our culture is not well.
Yes.
Just expecting so much of expecting one person or two people to do what a community used to do.
Yes. You know, that whole thing, it takes a village. So true. And I think, and that's a good point, because I think when women come together in circle, it is creating that village. Yeah. Because child rearing is hard work. It's relentless hard work. Constant.
Yes.
So, and it does fall to the nuclear family these days.
Yeah.
Like you say, the couple trying to get it all together, often with parents, relatives, interstate, overseas, and at the moment you can't even go to see them, or they can't come to see you. So,
I just felt a little bit of almost like an aching in my heart at that's still the way that things are, and my own family is overseas, and I haven't been able to see them for a while. I mean, I don't have kids at this point, but we need our people.
We do. We do.
And in addition to that healing power of community and connection, I also find here in the center, it reminds me of the healing power of beauty in the senses, because you have it. It's so, there's like a beautiful big pink Himalayan salt lamp that I just love the glow of the light, and there's stained glass windows, and there's beautiful paintings on the walls, and like red patterned rugs and crystals, and it always smells like frankincense, and there's always tea and snacks. And it's that I believe that pleasure is healing, that really connecting with goodness and enjoying our senses brings a certain kind of vitality and energy back into us.
Yeah.
Do you see it that way? Why do you make the space the way that it is?
Because it's fun. Because I love to shop. Because I've collected things over the years. But also the way this centre came together was a lovely collaboration of artists, like the woman who did the stained glass, Zach guy who did the lights, different people I bought crystals from, the woman who did the painting, which is our logo, the Heart and Soul of Wellness logo. There's been many different artists and artisans who have contributed. And
many hands
in
the village.
Absolutely. and things, as I said, that I've collected over the years have just landed in the perfect spot. I believe, I like to say that because people say to me, who's your interior decorator? And I always say the house. The house and the fact that I love to shop. So something will, I'll put something in a spot and that's where it'll stay. Yeah. Like when that crystal landed there, apart from the fact that it weighs so many kilos, it takes 3 people to lift it, it stayed in that spot. Yeah.
It's like this particular corner of the room goes, give me that.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Actually, and that reminds me, speaking of kind of the cooperation of different elements to support healing, the plants and the use of the plants in steaming, because I know that you are a keen gardener. And like you said before, you can just steam with water only, or you can steam with apple cider vinegar or salt, but that the plants, as I'm starting more and more to think of them as their own kind of sovereign beings, as having their own personalities and energies and unique contributions to the way that they show up.
Yes.
So tell me about like what your relationship is with the plants and what it's like when you actually garden and connect with them and then use those herbs in steaming.
Yes. Well, when I use herbs that I have grown, and then that's like so exciting.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, I love the fact that I can get on eBay and order organic yarrow flowers or whatever, and it can be in my letterbox in 2 days.
Yeah.
But when I grow it myself, it's so satisfying. And like you say, the plant, they are sovereign beings. They do have an energy and an entity, and they do speak to us. Mm-hmm. And that's how we learnt to do steaming or any kind of, whether it's spiritual bathing, which is when you're gathering the plants and the flowers and putting them in water, immersing, and then immersing the water in the sun for many hours before using it as like a auric cleanse, a spiritual bath. But you would always ask permission of the plant. You would bless the plant, introduce yourself to the plant. Yeah. Say, this is what I'm doing, and I ask for your blessing. And then even when you are collecting this, doing the steam, setting the steam up, you're offering prayers and gratitude into the water, because then coming back to the herbs in a minute, but the water itself is very receptive to energy and to prayers, and you can actually put your energy into the water. I'm just repeating myself now. But the herbs and they're so amazing. And so some herbs grow much better in town than they do where I live in the rainforest. Yeah. I've got white sage growing out there, which grows so well here, but it just dies every time I plant it out there. But and I think, I mean, I think I've said this to you before. I'm going to be a herbalist when I get old. That's what I would like to do. To really, like, my understanding of herbs is very intuitive. Yeah. But I would like to know more. Yeah. And I don't have a really good memory for what plants have got what, unless I use the same herbs all the time, and then I really get to know that herb. Yeah.
Do you have any favorites? Or is that like asking if you have favorite children?
Well, if you've got more than one child, you always say whoever needs you most of the time. So that means you can have many favorites. When I thought about this recently, when I had my first herb garden was when I was in my early 20s, and pretty much I still know and love those herbs today. And that's all the ones that most people recognise, thyme, oregano. Some I don't grow anymore. What else? I can't even remember what they are now. But I love basil. I love rue. I love nettles. I love roses. I love lavender, calendula. The lion's mane, that beautiful orange flower. I love that one. But I love oranges. Anything that's got orange, red, like marigolds.
As I'm hearing you describe that too, it's making me think of how, like, we're talking about this culture change and this paradigm change, and having more honoring, deeper relationships with plants feels like a part of that to me. That rather than seeing, and so I sometimes buy my herbs online in packets from whoever is selling them, but sometimes we can see them, we can view them just as like a commodity and a thing.
Yes.
Rather than a
living, breathing entity.
Yeah. And so that it also feels like there's a lot of medicine in that. Like now when I open my cupboard to make a pot of tea or make a steam, I go, who wants to come with me today?
Yeah.
And it feels like there's a bit more aliveness in that connection, and that reweaving those connections to other beings, I guess, other forms of nature is part of the healing, and to thank them and honor them in participating in your healing process brings it to a new level, I think. Yes.
And it also brings magic into our lives, because if I don't know about most people, but I don't see auric fields or energy fields. I can certainly sense them, but we very much think that we're on this physical world, on this physical plane. And that makes us feel really lonely.
Yeah.
It makes that sense of, so if you've got herbs reaching out to you going, there's this whole world here, you know, that you can access. And like you say, that we can heal you, we can offer you medicine. It's like coming back into the oneness of the fabric of all life, which is so multi-dimensional. And we have no idea how multi-dimensional. Well, we have an idea, but for most of us, our experience is very much, this is 3D, 4D, 5D, whatever, you know, because, it's like the veils are being lifted more.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exciting.
Yeah. Even just having this conversation, I feel more of a kind of buoyancy and buoyancy inside my skin, and there's like a layer of some sort of richness hovering around my skin. That's a kind of abstract, but
sounds nice.
That's what it feels like. And I also want to just honor and acknowledge that a lot of the things that we're speaking about are wisdom and traditions that Indigenous people have known and held, and have been systematically taken from them, and that they have been systematically punished for carrying these traditions. And you and I mean, I identify as a white woman. I'm not sure how you would identify yourself, but that I just want to honor that. We speak from our own lived experience, but to honor that there's an important role and recognition of the role that Indigenous people have played in keeping these traditions alive, and the cost that they have paid.
Yes.
Due to people probably from my own lineage.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a big conversation. Yeah. Because every country has been colonised. Yeah.
Yes, I just wanted to.
Yeah, thank you.
To speak to that and honour that.
Yeah.
I can hear the birds outside. I always, whenever I hear the birds, it is that also reminder of other beings out there.
Yep.
I've had lots of birds, and I'm sure people who've listened to the podcast before have heard the different birds and the different places that I've recorded from, but they always kind of remind me they bring me just little moments of joy and connection to the place that I'm living in and speaking in.
Yeah. Yeah. And they have so much joy. They're so oblivious to all the stuff that we're going on about. Human beings, I mean.
Yeah.
They're just there singing their heart out.
Yeah.
You know, their little tiny chests. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about your book and your womb medicine cards, and where people can find those, and where people can find you.
Thank you. So the book, you can find it on our website, Heart and Soul of Wellness, and it's actually showing up on Amazon and Booktopia. And I did assisted self-publishing with Animal Dreaming Publishing, so they've helped. They've put it out overseas and in other places as well. I've never actually, because it came out in the middle of COVID, we've never actually had a book launch as such. So there's never really been a concerted, let's sell this book kind of campaign. And then the cards came along after the book, and likewise there's never really been, okay, what are we going to do to get these cards out? So it's been very much word of mouth, and people come to the centre or they come to a yoni steam circle, and I'm always just so grateful when people buy my book. And
So it's womb medicine, the art of yoni steaming for women's health.
And when I wrote that book, it started out as it was kind of my education about yoni steaming. I was researching and finding out about it as I went along, and then as I kept writing, it started out as an ebook, and then some bright spark said, "Oh, you could write a book about this," you know. And then as the book progressed, and I thought, well, I can't just talk about yoni steaming. I need to talk about this, and I need to talk about that, and so there were other threads that got woven in as well. And it took a long time. There was a lot of self-doubt and a lot of feeling like a fraud, and knowing that other people knew more about this subject than I did, and who was I to be writing this book? And
sounds like the book had its way with you.
It did. It was hell. It was really, really hard work.
Yeah.
And for me to get over myself, and and that's and that witch wound that we talk about, I know that was part of it. There was this enormous fear that somehow somebody was going to read something out of context and that they would get hurt. That was my main fear. And so and then, because people talk about the birth of a book being like the birth of a baby, and when I saw it, it's just so beautiful.
Yeah,
the colours, the feel of it.
Yeah,
it's so soft and sweet and gentle. Like, how could this have been so? Such hard work. The illustrations. So, and the cards. They were easy. Second birth, it was much easier. That kind of flowed. And again, with the help of Animal Dreaming, they were amazing in helping me bring these beings into form.
Yeah. It kind of, the way you're talking about it reminds me of what you were saying before about connecting into that higher purpose, that you can let yourself be in that current. Meditate while you steam.
That's the page I just opened up on too. Yeah.
Would you like to pick one of the womb medicine cards and see if the cards have a message?
Sure.
For whoever's listening.
So you can pick one too.
Okay. This is my deck that we have here. I've been playing around with them at home. Sometimes.
Have you separated them into different? Does it matter if I
shuffle them? I have them shuffled. Yeah. So sometimes I go, what does my womb want or need today?
And then they feel so nice.
Yeah. I've been getting some of the plant ones recently, the herbs. So I got lemon peel and basil recently. Nice. So I did a steam with those last night. So I've recently finished bleeding.
And how did that feel?
The
smell must have been amazing.
Yeah, I always love smelling it. It's warm, and then my body feels kind of like plump and juicy and warm, and I do notice a difference in like the quality of my blood. Like it feels like it's supporting the natural cleansing. Which one have you got?
I got red clover. Let me remind you of your inner divine beauty.
Yeah.
So for steaming these friendly little blooms, balance hormones, increase blood circulation to the womb, and support healthy cervical mucus and optimize fertility. Red clover is beneficial to use to ease menstrual cramps.
I actually drew that one the other day, and I was like, I have so many of these herbs at home, but I don't have red clover. Why did you give me one that I don't have? But maybe it wants me to get some.
Yeah, there's some in the kitchen, actually.
Yeah. What do you think the personality of red clover is like?
I love red clover. I love clover in general.
Yeah.
Because, those their beautiful little heads.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful. And I always look for 4-leaf clovers as well. And the fact that if you think about, they grow many places. It's not like they get sown. It's not like somebody plants them. There they are in the alleyways, in the fields, very jaunty, very cheeky.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I mean, we don't get red clover so much around here. It's more the white clover.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost like the red clovers are the elders of the clover. I don't know that, but, because I think white clover, it does have medicinal properties, but not as much. Yeah.
I just drew the card for carnelian, the crystal. Ooh. It says earthy, rich, creative, powerful, sexual. Carnelian revs up the feminine. It is extremely healing to the womb area after miscarriage, abortion, or loss of a child.
Oh, beautiful.
Earthy, rich, creative, powerful, sexual. Let's finish on that note, okay?
Base chakra,
Yeah, let's celebrate the base chakra.
Yes. And root chakra sounds better than base, doesn't it?
Root. Foundation.
Yes.
In all of its glory.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing your energy and your time and your wisdom with us.
Thank you. Thank you.
It brings me great pleasure to imagine you out there listening to Reawakening Love and Power with Carol Ann. You can find Sali's book, Womb Medicine, The Art of Yoni Steaming for Women's Health, and the accompanying womb medicine healing cards at heartandsoulofwellness.com, or try your favorite bookseller. I support women to feel at home in their bodies and their sensual sexual nature. If you're resonating with me and have desires around feeling more liberated and at home in your sexuality, or around shifting a relationship pattern that's been bugging you, you're welcome to book a free clarity call through my website, carolann.com.au, and we can talk about what that could look like. You can also connect with me on Instagram as @CarolAnnAlive. May this episode be a warm pot of herbal steam, gently warming you and coaxing you back to the innate power of your pelvic cauldron.